As the military's largest force, the Army faces a particularly complex challenge in trying to implement its COVID-19 vaccination requirement. I'm joined by reporter Davis Winkie to talk about what's coming up. Davis, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andrea.
Of course. The Army's vaccination deadline is fast approaching on December 15th. What are things looking like in the Army?
So for the active duty force, it's looking pretty good right now. 96% of the Army's nearly 500,000 active duty service members have either completed the vaccine or started it. And it looks like it's going to be about on track with what the other services have seen so far when it comes to active component declinations.
So to be clear, this is the Army active duty deadline. Why is this last compared to the other service branches? And what are we looking at for the Army Reserve and National Guard?
So the reason why it's last just has to do with the Army being the biggest service and having the most people it needs to reach. As for the National Guard and Army Reserve, the reasons that senior leaders have been giving is that the footprint of those units is just really distributed throughout the country. You've got some states in the Midwest where every small town has its own National Guard armory with 30 to 40 troops stationed there. It takes a lot to make the vaccine available for those service members sometimes. And that's why senior leaders wanted to give extra time to make sure that all the soldiers had every opportunity in order to ensure that those declining it are actually declining it.
Okay, so let's talk about those declining it. What has happened to those who have already declined it, and what will happen to those who do decline it?
So on November 16th, Army Secretary Christine Wormuth put out a memo ordering commands to flag service members who have outright denied the vaccine and don't have any exemption pending. What a flag means is that they can't get awards, they can't get PCS'd, they can't get promoted. Basically, their entire careers are on hold until either they get out or until they decide to get the vaccine and become unflagged. That same memo also provided guidance to bar those service members from re-enlistment. When their contracts run out, that's it. And even with that said, the Army, in one of its earlier orders about enforcing the vaccine mandate, said that on order, commands need to be prepared to initiate involuntary discharges of service members who refuse the vaccine. Now, the Army is hesitant to tell me when or even confirm that phase 2 of the operation, which is involuntary discharges, will occur, but that's still hanging out there. They could just pull the rug out from all of these service members as soon as December 15th or maybe the next morning.
So just to confirm, as soon as December 15th, soldiers could be booted out of the Army. And what else do we know about the timeline and the enforcement of that?
So it's complicated because the Army has told commands to be ready to do it, but they haven't yet established whether they're actually going to kick all of these soldiers out of the Army, or B, when that's going to happen. It's marked in an early order about the vaccine rollout as being on order, which means that they're just waiting for the word.
So as far as the Army, are there any other legal implications we should be looking at?
So there are some service members who have been suing the Defense Department because they say that, hey, I've previously had the virus. Why should I have to get the vaccine if I have natural immunity? There's a couple issues with that. One is that the CDC still recommends that people who have had the virus get the vaccine. And two is that the DoD requirement is pretty clear that people who have had the virus still need to get the vaccine to comply with this mandate. Those lawsuits are still playing out, though, and there's been no indication from judges yet that they're going to issue any kind of injunction that would temporarily block the mandate for those soldiers.
I'm sure you've talked to some soldiers on the ground. How is this affecting morale, whether positive or negative? What are they saying about this mandate?
It's really split along political lines. There's some soldiers who believe strongly in personal choice, and you'll have some soldiers who will say, I got the vaccine, but I don't think it's right that the Army is forcing people to get it. But on the other hand, you've got a lot of people who are saying, hey, this is a readiness issue, especially in case of deployments. You can't even take the smallest risk that a bunch of service members could potentially get sick and potentially need medical care that diverts valuable battlefield resources. There's some competing arguments here, but ultimately, though, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has been crystal clear about what the rules will be.
So Davis, as the first deadlines hit, what will you specifically be looking for?
Obviously, the first thing is knowing how many soldiers have outright declined, how many exemptions have been approved. As of December 2nd, the Army has approved 3 permanent medical exemptions and 0 permanent religious exemptions. I'll be interested to see where those numbers are in order to get a better sense of, how many service members could potentially be facing discipline or discharge as a result. The other thing I'm going to be looking for is the Army's previously said that commanders, senior enlisted leaders in nominative positions are going to face immediate relief once they've refused the vaccine. I'm going to want to know how many of the Army's battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and all the way up the chain have declined the vaccine, and whether that's going to have any kind of impact on the Army senior leadership ranks.
Well, thank you, Davis. We know you'll be watching closely, and we look forward to hearing your updates and sharing them here on Defense News Weekly.